Over the weekend, I sliced my pinky finger with a mandolin. So I'm working with like an eighth less pinky. I'm not going to show it on camera. That'd be gross. I'm working with like an eighth less pinky than I should have. So I'm playing hurt today, but we're going to make it happen anyway. Also, I hate how my hair looks. I got out of the shower. This is how it looks. I don't feel like going to put a hat on, so we're just going to roll with it. This is a video that I think I've done 5 years in a row now. I rank the future of every single NBA team. I account for their young core. I account for future picks and also vibes. Vibes are very important here, which brings me to the first team. This might be a little bit of a surprise. I think the bottom tier is going to be a surprise. There's 2 teams in it. The first of which is the Sacramento Kings. I don't understand what the Kings are doing in terms of their future. They don't really have a lot of assets on the roster that you could like trade for a bunch of stuff, which obviously matters here. Like if they wanted to trade Sabonis tomorrow, they're going to get some stuff, but they're not going to get a lot of stuff. Like Keegan Murray's fine. They've got all their own picks, which is nice. They've got some other future assets, but given that the Kings are like never good, with the exception of 2 years within the last handful. The owner situation is a catastrophe. They can never figure out their coach. They always fire their coach too quickly. The GM situation is a catastrophe. I have absolutely no faith whatsoever that the Kings are going to be good at any point over the next 10 years. The West is absolutely loaded. They've traded away some of these young guys and brought in like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine are like significant pieces of the team. I don't like the Kings' future at all. I genuinely think you can make the argument that the Kings have the worst future in the entire league. So also I forgot to mention the way we do these rankings is within tiers. This is the D tier all the way to the bottom, and that's where the Sacramento Kings live. The next team in the D tier, the only other team in the D tier, is the Golden State Warriors. And I understand this sounds crazy. Hang out with me for a second. If you really look at what the Warriors have here, they've got 2 years. They've got this year and they've got next year of Draymond, Steph, and Jimmy Butler. And that's it. Like, unless you're a big fan of Podziemski or Moody or whatever the heck is going to happen with Jonathan Kuminga, they have literally nothing. They owe a future like protected pick to I think Washington in 2030. They do have most of their picks. And really what it comes down to is like once Steph is gone, he might retire in 2 years. I don't really know where this team is going, what they're doing. They don't have future pieces unless Kuminga becomes something. They can maybe get something for him. But like once the 2 years are over, if they either let Draymond, Jimmy Butler, whoever walk, if these guys retire, Curry retires, whatever the case may be, they've got nothing left. So it might seem crazy given that like they're probably going to be pretty decent this year. I think the Warriors have one of the worst futures in the entire league. If you just look at like what they have to build around outside of their old guys, it's not much. Now we move up to the C tier and we go to a team that I did consider putting at the bottom, but ultimately didn't. And it's the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously the negatives here are Embiid is always hurt. Paul George is old and always hurt. Those guys are both on giant contracts. That's certainly not going to help your immediate future. The only reason they are not in the D tier here is because Tyrese Maxey and then VJ Edgecombe, who I really, really like. I think Edgecombe is going to be good. And ultimately, they aren't a team that you think of as having this like super bright future, but I do think that Maxey and Edgecombe are enough to keep them out of the D tier, even given the crazy bad contracts of Embiid and Paul George. If you want to put them all the way to the bottom, I'm not going to argue with you. Next is the Phoenix Suns. I think generally I'm probably one of the lowest one of the lowest people out there to talk about basketball for a living on the Phoenix Suns, not only this upcoming season, but just in the future in general. I'm not a big Jalen Green guy. I like Malawach. I was hoping the Nets would actually pick Malawach. Obviously, they did not. And Devin Booker's good, but Devin Booker's going to be making like 60 to 70 million bucks over the next couple of years, and that just doesn't seem like great value to me. And outside of that, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be excited about on this roster. It's kind of similar to the Kings too, where it's like I just don't have a lot of faith in the owner making the correct decisions and not just doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Like there's some assets, but not really a ton for me to be excited. I'm not super high on Phoenix long term. Next team in the C tier is the LA Clippers. You could convince me to put them as the worst future in the entire league if we knew what was happening with Kawhi Leonard. But they're the richest team in the league, assuming that Steve Ballmer doesn't get like kicked out as owner or something. The arena is amazing. It's like the only team on the entire list I'm actually accounting for like the arena as part of like their future. It's really, really cool. I think there's a lot of excitement there. I think they're going to be a good free agency team potentially over the next couple of seasons. And even though they don't have like a crazy amount of young talent, like Zubats, although he's not young necessarily, is a good like future piece for them. They actually are clearing out a lot of cap space and having these future picks moving forward. They're in the C tier though, obviously, because they're old and they don't really have like a young guy to build around, and they might lose like multiple first round picks and Kawhi's contract might be voided. The owner might get kicked out. They might lose the All-Star game this year. All those things could definitely happen, which is why the Clippers are in the C tier. Next, let's talk about a team that honestly, they should not be here, but they are, and it's the New Orleans Pelicans. They've got 2 rookies this year in Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen that people are pretty excited about. Obviously Zion, if he's ever healthy, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. They've got some pieces here. there's just kind of like a cursed franchise. Like whatever I'm saying about the Kings and Suns ownership situations is what I'm saying about the medical situation in New Orleans. They're going to get hurt. Guys are not going to develop. They're going to trade Zion eventually for like less than he's worth, and then they're just going to be bad again. Like that is just how the Pelicans have operated. That is what history tells us about the Pelicans. And despite some of the youth, despite some of the future picks, I have absolutely zero confidence in the future of the New Orleans Pelicans. And until something changes, until I see one full, really good, healthy season from them, I'm going to continue to think that nothing good is going to happen for them, and that is why they are in the C tier. 2 more teams left now in this tier. I put the Miami Heat here, which is interesting because I think I'm a little bit higher, I guess I should say, than a lot of other people on Miami this year. I still think they're going to be like one of the 6 or 7 best teams in the conference. Spoelstra's still really good as a coach. But future-wise, like they have Tyler Hero, but he's extension eligible. That's going to be a big number. Bam is good. Outside of that, though, like there's just not a lot to be excited about. I think they're a better this year team than they are a future team. Obviously, there's some excitement there about Khalil Ware, but I'm just not very high on the Heat's future. And then to round out this tier is the New York Knicks. I obviously understand they've given away all these future picks, but I couldn't put them all the way at the bottom because they're still a really, really good team. Like, I'm not convinced that the Warriors are going to be really good this year. I'm certainly not convinced the Kings are going to be really good this year. The Knicks, in the immediate sense, in the next 1 to 2 years, are going to be contending at the top of a very weak Eastern Conference, and there is a scenario, if you're doing the Doctor Strange, like 16 million outcomes, at least one of those outcomes this year results in the New York Knicks winning the championship. I don't know if it's more than one, but at least one of them does result in that. It is within the realm of possibility that the Knicks win the title this year, and so I can't really put them all the way at the bottom, despite owing all these future picks and despite obviously having a little bit of an older roster with someone like Brunson, who's a little older than you realize because he's a long-term college player. But I really like their team. Still already talked about them in a different preview video. I'm going to put the Knicks in the C tier, even though obviously the future pick situation is not great, which brings us now to the biggest tier in the entire video, the B tier. These are kind of all the like in-between teams. They've got some stuff going on, but they're not high enough to be like, wow, they have some of the brightest futures in the entire league. And that begins with the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, they have a bunch of future picks, but the problem is that's pretty much all they've got. They've got 5 rookies this year. They've got Michael Porter Jr., who maybe they can flip at the deadline. They've got Cam Thomas on a qualifying offer. They've not got Nick Claxton, who they've been trying to trade for like 2.5 years at this point. But you have to be excited about at least the assets, whatever the rookies could be this year, and then also all of these future picks. So I felt like they couldn't be lower than the B tier, but they certainly couldn't be higher than this either, because like in terms of the actual on-court product, guys you're actually excited about moving forward, not a whole lot there. Next up is Washington, which I kind of considered putting in the A tier. I like a lot of Washington's team. They have some future picks as well. They're probably going to be bad this year. They just need a core guy. Like if Washington had won the Cooper Flag lottery, obviously they'd won the Wemby lottery, which I think ping pong ball wise, they were actually pretty close both times. I'd feel much better about them, and I would definitely put them in the A tier and potentially higher. Obviously, they just don't have that central guy. That's kind of a theme of a couple of teams in this tier. They don't have the star. They don't have the superstar. They don't have the guy to build around, but they've got some interesting pieces. Sarr was actually pretty good, especially towards the end of last year. I still really like Koulibaly, although he really cooled off after the first part of the year. I'm just a fan of what Washington has going on. I think they're going in the right direction. I'm going to put them in the B tier. Next is kind of another team along those lines, and it is the Portland Trailblazers. They have a bunch of guys. They don't have the guy because Scoot hasn't developed into that, but they are extremely deep. They've got a ton of depth. They have some not great contracts, guys like Jeremy Grant. Obviously, they got rid of DeAndre Ayton's massive contract, but there's just depth and youth at every single spot. They're in a good spot draft picks wise. I just really like what Portland's building. It's kind of like Washington. I don't know if anybody's really going to develop into the guy, but if they need to trade for the guy, they absolutely can do that because they have the assets. So I put them in the B tier. And again, kind of like Washington, I could have been convinced to maybe bump them up a little bit higher if you wanted to weigh a little bit heavier some of the assets and the youth they have rather than like the right now of the team. Next is the Dallas Mavericks, which I expected to put them lower. Obviously, this time last year, they would have been higher because they had Luka Doncic on the team, but they got Cooper Flag, and that completely saves them. If they didn't win the Cooper Flag lottery, they probably are all the way at the bottom of this list, right? Because like they don't really have a whole lot going on in terms of youth. They've got some really good pieces. They've got, Kyrie, PJ Washington, obviously Anthony Davis, but you're concerned about the age, and it's clearly like a 1.5 to 2 year window of them trying to quote unquote compete. But then they win the Cooper Flag lottery, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, even if this Anthony Davis terrible plan we put together doesn't work, We still have Cooper Flag at the center of it, and so obviously that helps them out. That puts them in the B tier. It's lower than they would have been if they had Luka still, but I'm going to keep them in the B tier. Next is another team kind of in that theme of they've got a bunch of pieces. We don't really know anything about them. It's the Toronto Raptors. They've got a bunch of guys that are probably pretty good. I don't know if they're going to work well collectively. Scotty Barnes had a little bit of an up and down season last year. Brandon Ingram just has not played with the team yet because he had the worst ankle injury in the history of the NBA for whatever reason last year. They just didn't play him. They were trying to lose games. So we literally have no idea what he looks like with this roster. They're kind of sort of maybe trying to get rid of RJ Barrett. They re-signed Jakob Poeltl to an extension. So this year the Raptors could win 42 games, and I don't think it would be that surprising. I don't know really what the ceiling is beyond that, though. They're a very difficult team to figure out. I'm going to put them in the B tier. Next up, why are they here? I have the Charlotte Hornets in the B tier, and I'm just now realizing there's no reason for them to be in the B tier. I mean, like, they've got Knipple, who they drafted, LaMelo, who's always hurt, Brandon Miller, who missed the entire season last year. I think I might be playing minutes at the starting five this year. No disrespect to Moussa Diabate, who I like, but like, there's not a whole lot going on here in Charlotte. I never do this. I'm going to retroactively, I'm going to put the Hornets in the C tier. There's no reason for them to be in the B tier at all. They don't have a better future than like Toronto or Dallas or Portland or Washington or Brooklyn. This is not a tier they should be in. They need to go in the C tier unless we get some kind of crazy season from LaMelo. I mean, I guess you could say if you really like the coach and he seemed pretty solid, but they're going to actually go back down to the C tier. Next is the Indiana Pacers, a team I really struggled to rank because like they just made the finals. How low can they really be in the rankings? Obviously, the concern is with Tyrese Haliburton trying to recover from his Achilles. They also obviously lost Miles Turner in free agency, and I think they're going to do okay replacing him, but I did bump them down a little bit. If Tyrese Haliburton was healthy right now, they would be in the A tier at least, but given some of the uncertainty with that injury and then obviously losing Miles Turner, I'm going to put them in the B tier. Next is the Utah Jazz. Maybe a bit of a surprise that they're only at this spot because they have Lauri Markkanen, who they could trade. Of course, they've got a bunch of future picks. They've got a bunch of young guys. They just don't really have a whole lot of guys that I actually like. I like Lauri Markkanen. Walker Kessler's like a pretty solid defensive big. Ace Bailey, I have no idea what he's going to be. I put them in the B tier. I guess if you're really, really weighing heavily the young guy assets that we don't know a whole lot about yet, you could maybe put them in the A tier, but I put them in the B tier. Next up is the Chicago Bulls, which I think, I'm not sure, someone would have to check this for me. I think they've probably been right around this spot for the entirety of the time I've been doing these videos. I think I started in 2020 and I've done it every year since, or 2021. And I think Chicago's been right in the middle every single time, just like they're always right in the middle of the Eastern Conference standings. Kobe White, pretty good. Matas Buzelis had a pretty good year. Josh Giddey, just re-signed him, pretty solid. What else are we supposed to do with the rest of the roster? I said this in the preview video, if you guys haven't watched it. Whatever I say about the Bulls this year, whether it be in terms of their future or in terms of their season preview, I'm very confident you can copy and paste it for next year, and unless they win the lottery, it's going to be the exact same. They've got some interesting pieces. They're going to be solid. The East isn't that good. They're going to win like 38 games, and then we're going to do the exact same thing all over again next year, which puts them right in the middle in the B tier. Last up in this tier is a team I really struggle to rank, and it is the Memphis Grizzlies, because like they've got John Morant, they've got Jaren Jackson Jr., and they got a ton of picks in exchange for Desmond Bane. So you'd think, okay, if you just plopped John Morant and Jaren Jackson onto a team that has all these extra future first-round picks, you're in a really good spot, right? Well, I don't love Ja's like long-term outlook from a health perspective. Guys that play the way that he does and gets hurt as often as he does don't generally age super well, so that's a concern. And Desmond Bane was good for them. Like, yes, having all those future picks is really cool, but you have to actually do something with them. And if you want to try and make the argument for them to be in the A tier because of those picks, that's fine. I'm just not really optimistic about the long term. I really like Jaren Jackson, and they've got some other interesting young guys. I know they're really high on the guy they drafted this year on the wing, but for me, I'm going to leave them in the B tier, which brings me now to the A tier. This is the top, hold on, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 11, 12 futures in the entire league. Most of these teams are like borderline top 10 or obviously 100%, top 3, top 4, whatever the S tier is, futures in the entire league. So keep that in mind. That tier begins, I'm stepping on something that is constantly making a noise. Get out of here. This tier begins with the Orlando Magic. I could have been convinced to put them in the S tier. I understand that the list is like my opinion, but sometimes I feel like it needs to be a little bit more of a consensus opinion. If it was like, you gave me truth serum and like I'm not trying to do any hot takes or anything, but if you gave me truth serum, I was like, what's your intrusive thought about this list? it's that the Orlando Magic should be in the S tier. Paolo's really good. Franz is really good. Jalen Suggs, when he's healthy, is good. They've got Desmond Bane, who's going to be perfect for them. I think they could be the 1 seed in the East this year. I'm just saying, like, I know that's kind of crazy, but they compete, they guard. They obviously needed an addition of shooting and perimeter playmaking, which they got with Desmond Bane. I think Orlando's really good. I think they're going to be really good for a long time. Paolo's just that good. I'm really, really high on Orlando, and so that's why they are in the A tier. Next up, the LA Lakers. We get a couple of teams here in this tier where it's like, if you have one of these guys, obviously in this case, that guy is Luka, you can't really be lower than the A tier, in my opinion, because, like, yes, the future is, 10 years from now, but it's also 2-3 years from now. And if you've got Luka on the team, which they will because he signed a contract, you're going to be good. Like, you're not going to necessarily be a guaranteed contender, but you're going to be pretty good. And so the Lakers have to be in the A tier, despite obviously LeBron being old, not a ton of assets outside of Luka. Having that guy on your team puts you in the A tier every single time, which is also the case for the Milwaukee Bucks. They are really testing this theory of, like, if you have one of these guys, in this case it's Giannis, you have to be in the A tier. They're really pushing the limits of that thought process with the age of this roster and, frankly, how bad the rest of the roster is. But you have Giannis, and until he says he wants to leave, you've got a pretty good future. You've got a pretty good chance of at least trying to do something every single season. And if he says he does want to leave, you're going to get a ton of stuff for him. They're in the A tier. The Nuggets are also there. You could have put them in the S tier if you wanted. Jokic is getting a little bit older. You never really know. He could just decide one off season, I want to go, hang out with my horses. I don't want to play basketball anymore. So that obviously makes me a little bit nervous. But they have Jamal Murray. They have Aaron Gordon. Cam Johnson's going to be really good for them. They have Jokic. They have to be in the A tier. I actually put Minnesota in here as well, and it's not entirely because of Anthony Edwards. He's not on the same kind of plane, obviously, as guys like Jokic and Giannis and Luka, but he's good enough and young enough and going to continue to improve enough that he does kind of count for this. Plus, they've got some pretty good assets. Like, they've got Nas Reed. Julius Randle was pretty good for them in the postseason last year. Gobert is what he is, but I think they're going to continue to grow and develop. Obviously, a lot of this depends on what happens with Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon, some of the younger guys they're going to be counting on more this year now that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is gone, but I still like them. I'm going to put them in the A tier. I also put the Atlanta Hawks, a team that I think is going to be pretty good this year. I'm not a huge Trae Young guy, but I think this is a really well-suited roster for what he does. Dyson Daniels, Reese Shea, now they've got KP in there, depending on what they decide to do with his contract extension. Okongwu is someone that I really like. This is a good team. Jalen Johnson, who I did mention, this is a good team, and I think a team that is going to potentially compete for a top 4 seed in the East this year, and they've got some really nice assets to continue to build. I like Atlanta this year as well as in the future. Next is the Boston Celtics, and I really thought about putting them in the B tier because Tatum has the injury, and that after that it's like Derek White and Jaylen Brown. But I think organizationally they've proven Brad Stevens is one of the best front office guys in the entire league. Joe Mazzulla literally just won a title as a coach, so like you have to at least put him on some kind of top whatever list of head coaches. And so I just think that kind of the infrastructure of the team keeps them in the A tier, even if you're pessimistic about Jason Tatum's injury recovery, even if you're pessimistic about the core around Tatum and Brown. Obviously, with losing a bunch of guys in the offseason, I'm going to keep them in the A tier anyway. And then rounding out the A tier is the Detroit Pistons, another team that I really, really like, a team that I think is just going to continue to grow and improve. Cade's really, really good. Jaden Ivey is either going to be a core part of the team in a year or he's not going to be on the team in a year. And in that case, they'll get something out of him. I really like the infrastructure Detroit's building, and Asar Thompson, potential huge breakout candidate this year. I really, really like Detroit, which brings me to the S tier, the top 4 futures in the entire league for this season, this offseason. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't even know if I need to explain this. Of course, they're really good. They just won the title. They've got all these young guys. They still have future picks as well. They are the best suited team you could possibly build to deal with all of these restrictions, the second apron, all that stuff. They're really good. San Antonio, also in the S tier. They still have future picks, even after adding De'Aaron Fox. They have the number 2 pick in the draft in Dylan Harper. And of course, Victor Wembanyama at the center of it. There's no argument whatsoever to be made for either of these teams to not be in the S tier. Which brings me to 2 teams that I think you could make the argument to be in the A tier, but I put them in S, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, first of all, and the Houston Rockets, second of all. Let's talk about the Cavs first. This core 4 of guys that they have that are all young, that are young-ish, that are all maybe not necessarily complementary, but like you can play them all together and you can easily just keep throwing these guys out there for the next couple of seasons because they're all under contract. Mobley, Allen, Garland, Mitchell, that is such a strong young-ish core that I feel like it's hard to match that with any non-Thunder team throughout this list. And so for that reason, I feel like they have to be in the S tier. If you just don't love how they all fit, or you're not a huge Jared Allen fan, or you don't like Garland on defense, you want to put them in the A tier, that's fine. I chose to put them in the S tier. And then the Houston Rockets also in the S tier. I could see some people saying, oh, well, KD's old. They gave up some assets. The actual core offensive pieces of the team aren't that great. They got older this offseason, so they need to be in the A tier. I can understand that. Amen Thompson's really good. Şengün's really good. KD just said he wants to play till he's in his 40s. He might be on the team literally still 4 years from now, still averaging, 25 a game or something. I still think Houston has one of the brightest futures in the entire league. If I got to take two futures of the entire league, I would take Oklahoma City and San Antonio. And then I think I would probably take Houston right after that. I think they're 3, and then the Cavs are 4. The rest of the list is not ranked in order within the tiers, but obviously the tiers themselves are ranked. And I just want to have some fun today and talk about the futures of every single team. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think the brightest futures, or what you think I got the most wrong. Make fun of my hair. Talk about the fact that I'm missing an eighth of my finger. Whatever you want to talk about is fine. Leave some comments. I'm excited to talk about this with you guys in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you next time. That's the futures of every team. I don't know how to end the video.